We don't talk about these guys very often, but they are around. They exist. This is the Vanguard. Okay, they're sort of like I don't even necessarily know. Sort of like Bernie or Busters type people. They are highly engaged liberal people who are like, you know, Bernie betrayed us, AOC betrayed us, that type of people typically, and they've been taking shots at a lot of lefty creators. They're like one of those lefty channels that spend their time talking more about other people on the left than they do about what the right is up to these days. They make a lot of videos on Bernie. They make a lot of videos on, I don't know. Don't know who this guy is. Like this guy, I have no clue who that guy is, but they make a video on that guy, whoever the heck that is. Things along those lines, right? These types of people. They talk about Shank Yuger. They talk about other content creators, but as you can see, there is a lack of, you know, talking about right-wing stuff. Anyways, they're interesting. I don't talk about them that often. They haven't been in my like sphere of influence very often. But I know that they exist, and they've been having some beef with some people. One of those people being specifically Sam Seder. Oh yeah, they're also the real like sort of like Kyle Kalinske. Censorship, bro. It's out of control these days. And so Sam decided to accept their request to have a little debate. They're going to be talking about some stuff. They are gonna 2v1 him a little bit, as far as I know, but I wanted to figure out what was going on. I thought that it would be quite interesting, so I wanted to play a little bit of Voidigo while we listen to this. Don't worry about that. I am, as many of you all know, the world's greatest video game and debate listener. Streamer is on the platform. It's my hidden talent, and so I can do both flawlessly at any point in time of the day. Even in my sleep. So I did want to see a little of this. Can I get a little boop? Yeah, there we go. Other reactors hate him. Also, I thought that this was a new guy, okay? If you guys know of the Vanguard, I had no clue who this guy was. Apparently, this is the same guy that's always been there. I thought that this was a new guy, mainly because he looks so much different than what I remember him to look like. But apparently, he just shaved his beard, and it cut like 5 years off of his perceived age. I thought it was wild. All right. Let us begin. Also, we're going to be playing Voidigo. Bro, buy Voidigo. It's a sick game. The devs are really cool, and we're going to do a giveaway sometime soon. I know I keep saying that, but in all seriousness, we will. What game is this? This is Voidigo. It's a cool game. Roguelite. Anyways, let's go.
Stream, Mr. Sam Seder. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking some time out of your holiday weekend.
Audio.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I guess a great place for us to kind of kickstart this off would be, as we kind of mentioned in the intro to the show, we're going to be having a kind of a conversation about our differences and views on maybe the benefits or the the setbacks from deplatforming individuals from the internet. Some would broadly call it censorship. Whatever the terminology you're more comfortable with. But yeah, I wondered if just for our audience, you could kind of lay out your viewpoint on this. Gavin and I were pretty rigidly pro free speech, across platforms. And I wondered, if you could lay out kind of your outlook on that.
Sure. I think that the best way to address any of the issues that people have in terms of like people being deplatformed on social media, for instance, is to make these platforms less precious, insofar as, there's nobody who's really completely deplatformed from the internet, right? Like even Alex Jones, I think, can be on Rumble or Gab or something like that. So the issue really becomes, are you taking him off a place where there is a real concentration of all the eyeballs? And is that unfair? Like, has Twitter or YouTube become the town square? And from my perspective, I would like to basically prevent companies from being the town square. I don't think the town square should be a private enterprise. And I'm not quite sure how you would do it with government ownership of that platform. So the best, from my perspective, the best thing to do would be to heavily regulate these corporations. Maybe you do it by limiting certain algorithms. Maybe you do it by making it far less profitable for them, not allowing certain data scraping. There's all sorts of mechanisms basically under the umbrella of antitrust where you could prevent a Twitter or a YouTube from having such market dominance that to be kicked off of one of these sites is such an issue.
So Sam does have a point here. When it comes to like the actual issue is sort of like media consolidation. Like there's a lot of there aren't that many people doing what a lot of platforms are doing, but even then there are still a lot of avenues for you to be able to do what you want to do, right? There are very few people who are like actually banned from everywhere and have no possible way of, you know, like using the internet or something. It's just not real, right? Like even people like Laura Loomer, she has places that she can talk and everything. She's just really mad that she doesn't get to talk specifically in the place that she wants to. A lot of this is less about you aren't able to talk and more about you aren't able to talk specifically where you want to, which I mean isn't like really a right if I'm going to be honest, right? And a lot of those people who are like banned from a lot of places, a lot of them kind of deserve it. A lot of them deserve it. And we've talked about this before. I'll like expand on it later, you know, if and when we get there. But I think a lot of the problem with people is less about like figuring out what exactly is right or wrong, and what a lot of people actually think of when it comes to a lot of this stuff is how will this affect me, and less of how will this affect like the actual world that we live on, and whether or not this is going to make things far worse for like all of us, or like far better. I think a lot of like people's personal opinions get into it, and I don't want that to happen to me. Well, just don't do what they did, right? Like, I mean, it's easy for me not to get banned from like YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter, mostly because I'm not like an insane person the way that a lot of these people who get banned are. But you know,
and the flip side of that is I don't know what it is that people want to have happen in terms of these private corporations. If you tell me that like, well, government should step in and regulate these corporations in such a way that they can deplatform no one, let's say I would be far more interested. One, I think that's problematic because I don't know how you draw those lines. And then you're asking the government to do it. And I think that's far more dangerous,
right?
Than having, you know, small private entities make that decision based upon their own, you know, terms of service. But I just don't know.
Yeah, I think I'd rather not have, you know, like a potential Congress or Republican government choose who's on the platform or not. At that juncture,
you know, that's both a combination of like the principle and the practicality. And faced with this reality, I am not. I don't really have a problem when I see right wingers being deplatformed.
Sure,
I don't.
That's yeah. No, if you want to finish, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And you know, I don't. I know the arguments, the more sort of practical, less sort of like ideological arguments as to why you wouldn't want right wingers to be deplatformed on YouTube, because ostensibly it could come for left wingers. But the reality is that I think historically the left has always been deplatformed. In fact, they have not been platformed, so there's not an opportunity to deplatform. Particularly in the context of like cable news and broader communication systems. And also, I would just say that, like, you know, if you move to that realm of argument, which is a more sort of strategic one, in other words, don't advocate for Alex Jones to be deplatformed, because then they'll come for Sam Seder, and you don't want that. My argument would be that, like, it's a net benefit for the world to lose Alex Jones on YouTube and to lose Sam Seder.
That's true.
And honestly, like, if that was to come to it, you know, my audience is not that
I'm glad
big.
That I'm not the only person who thinks this.
I think he does more damage than I do good. And I think across the board, you can see that dynamic as in play. Now, if there was a different balance of power, maybe that argument would have different implications. But I'm taking the world as it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, let's take the world as it is, because we're, you start off by kind of talking about these hypotheticals of like, well, should the government intervene to prevent deplatforming? Obviously, that's not the, current case. Unfortunately, social media companies, as you refer to them, the new town square, unfortunately, it is, in the hands of these big companies. And I think it's kind of hard to deny that, whether it's Spotify or Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, these kind of companies are the new public square, so to speak. So again, let's talk about things as they are, not in a hypothetical about, what should the government do. Let's talk about things right now as they are. Hopefully things change, but right now it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And the fact of the matter is, Sam, is that you have advocated for the deplatforming of not just Alex Jones, but people like Joe Rogan, for example, during the coronavirus pandemic, when you were, I think, you were on MSNBC. We did a segment about it at the time.
Damn, that's base.
Implying, if not straight up, advocating for Spotify to deplatform Joe Rogan, take him down.
Or do something.
I mean, no, I was saying that Spotify has to be responsible. If they're, Joe Rogan could go onto YouTube. Joe Rogan has a massive audience.
Well, here's my problem with that.
Spotify has to take responsibility. In fact,
But he left YouTube for Spotify.
In that instance, and I specifically did not use the word deplatform. But I think Spotify has to be held to account in that instance, right? They are making millions of dollars off of, in the context of a public health emergency, they are making millions of dollars off of selling against the message that, complete and total misinformation. And so, yeah, I would want to, if there was a mechanism in which you could hold Spotify to account, lawsuits, or, we don't have any statutory stuff, but yeah, I would be completely in favor of that.
All right, well, let's go.
Then they make a business decision as to what they're going to do with Joe Rogan.
Okay, well, let's go from there then. Say they did decide to deplatform Joe Rogan. Do you remember what happened around the time that calls for that were happening? I think it was either Gab or Rumble. I forget exactly which one, but they basically offered Joe Rogan to replicate his Spotify deal for $100 million for him to come on over there. And that's kind of my problem with this whole argument. Deplatforming someone like Joe Rogan from Spotify would be the biggest gift imaginable to sites like Gab or Rumble or Parler or Truth Social, go on and on, which are literal cesspools of right-wing extremism and bigotry, far more than any of the current, social media platforms. And I think that when someone has kind of disappeared, from Twitter or YouTube, liberals often think out of sight, out of mind. And, they just kind of think that because they aren't being exposed to that content, that no one else is either. But in reality, the censored content creator simply takes their business and their audience to an even more extreme right-wing echo chamber, further radicalizing themselves and their audience in the process, while growing those platforms such as Gab, such as Rumble in the process, which then gives an even bigger microphone and even bigger platform to all the other extremists that are already on those platforms. So, I just don't think that even if Spotify did deplatform him, again, he's just going to go to Rumble, he's just going to go to Gab, and then his audience and himself are even going to become further radicalized, further right wing, and nobody wins. We've just kind of removed the situation from out of sight, but it's still a problem.
Well, I think there's
So it is true that a lot of them can go to like more extreme places, but that's just like the trade-off. I don't think that means that since they can go to more extreme places, it means that we should just not enforce a TOS when it should be enforced, and not like kick somebody off of a platform when they deserve to be kicked off. Like, these are, I mean, that sucks and everything, but is that a better solution than just kicking them off and telling them to go somewhere else? Nobody's advocating for us to like kill them or something. They just have to take their business elsewhere. And sure, they can, but this doesn't like always work out. If like being able to just buy people to build up your platform works, then where's Mixer? where are all the other like supposed Twitch and like live streaming alternatives besides like YouTube? But YouTube is bigger than Twitch ever was, and by orders of magnitude. That doesn't even work out. It doesn't work out anywhere near as much as people try and say that it is. It just doesn't. When people get deplatformed, they just kind of disappear. Like, you're not gonna build a huge community off of like Gab or something. And so these things happen, but it's not like they're like great or something. And it's not like it's going to make the situation far worse. It just doesn't happen. It's not real. Yeah, where's BitChute? Oh, yeah, where was the last time someone's been like, no, don't kick them off of YouTube. They're gonna go to BitChute. Can you imagine? That's gonna be such a boon for BitChute. Yeah, I bet BitChute's doing so much better now that like a bunch of like insane right-wingers got banned off of YouTube, and now they have to like upload their videos there. Man, BitChute. Oh man, I remember the last time I heard about BitChute. Oh wait, I don't.
I don't think that argument is not without merit. I think that's a decent argument against it. I happen to think that they were full of shit, that they don't have that kind of money. They weren't going to pay Joe Rogan that money.
Yeah, I highly doubt that.
It was a publicity stunt. And even if they were, they wouldn't make that money back. For Spotify, it's a lost leader. And it gets people within their closed universe you know, Spotify, it makes people become members of Spotify. I mean, that's why they do that, and sort of the same sort of model that like HBO or Netflix would do, even if a show is not necessarily getting ratings, if it's getting a lot of attention.
Punto, just as a heads up,
It
he
has
made
value.
a 5-hour video covering a 10-minute video you did to White Knight Terrible content creators and provide zero evidence for my claims against you and repeatedly obfuscate concrete legal charges against those creators.
Do not come.
Thank you, Balthazar, for the $10. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. What do you mean the fuck? What? Oh, here comes the racist. Here comes the racist people. Oh, I have no clue what I have no clue what she said. Well, I have no clue what Lupe said. I'm a racist and I can't understand Hispanic people when they talk. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. Here, let me read it for the racist people in chat. Just as a heads up, I made a 5-hour video covering a 10-minute video you did to White Knight Terrible content creators to provide zero evidence for the claims. You repeatedly obfuscate concrete legal charges against those creators. So true. So true. Thank you, Balthazar.
Quite convinced, frankly, that he could move over there, but I don't know if that would necessarily be a bad thing. Again, I mean, if the idea is that, like, you know, I mean, I think there's some argument that, like, if you get a bunch of Joe Rogan listeners going over into a platform that has a bunch of, you know, like a cesspool, like you say, I think there's a legitimate argument that you might be sort of leading people to water that you don't want them to drink, as it were. But so I think that, you know, that has some merit, and I'd have to, like, maybe see an example of that to see if it works out that way. But aside from that, again,
I
like,
think there's many examples of it working out that way. Like, for example, Nick Fuentes is someone who was censored by, you know, a lot of the major social media companies. He then went and started his own. It's called Cozy, and a lot of right wingers now exist there. Again, there's no left wing, you know, pushback that happens on that platform. It's just a bunch of right wingers. It's just a complete echo chamber.
I mean, okay, I can still talk about. So here's the thing: we've made videos on what goes on Cozy. It's really not that hard. You could just find the video, and a lot of them save the videos in which they talk about a lot of this shit. It's nowhere near as difficult as you may imagine. If you want to talk about it, then just do. There's actually literally nothing stopping you. So I really don't get this point. Like, we've done segments on things that have happened on that platform, and nobody goes to that platform either. It's not like some sort of massive money-making platform. There are a lot of far right wingers who go there. I mean, that's true. There are far many that don't. I don't think anything really would have stopped him from making that from making that either, because he does like to, because right wingers do like to fleece their audiences for as much money as they possibly can. So I mean, sounds exactly like something that a lot of them would do anyways. And a lot of them just kind of lie about how mainstream media treats them anyways. So a lot of them would just do this because, oh, we're so oppressed, we're so hated, even though they're like the top performing content creators on a lot of these platforms. So but okay, whatever, I guess. Whatever, I guess. Also, Balthazar, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. I really appreciate you for that. Thank you. It's not like the truth ever mattered to these people in the first place. Actually, the truth is fundamentally detrimental for their way of being.
I'd rather him be, you know, around on the current existing social medias than
I would not.
Even worse echo chamber.
I would not want him to be there.
Well, I don't know. An echo chamber, a genuine echo chamber, is the reason why it echoes is because it's sort of hermetically sealed. And
you know what? I need to start using that. That's a really great point. It's called an echo chamber. The reason why it's called an echo chamber is because it's sealed from everything else that goes on the outside, and nothing on the inside gets out. So sure, it's probably making the people who are there worse, but I think it's better for the people who are there to get to have even worse content, possibly, because I don't even know if they actually do get more radicalized. They just are there. It's called an echo chamber. It echoes because it's empty. That's the thing, right? And so sure, they do get worse, but at the same time, well, let's even like buy into the fact that they get worse, because I'm not even sure if they actually get worse. Sure, it's possible for them to get worse. We'll say that. But I think it's better for a smaller amount of people to get worse than it is for a large amount of people to get worse, personally.
Of the mind that there is going to be in this country a certain number of people like that, and I think the sort of primary directive right now is limiting the number of people. I mean, you could argue. I mean, if you want to argue that deplatforming actually helps the right. I think that like if I saw genuine evidence of that, I might change my perspective. And now we're just talking in terms of like what's the best strategy. I think there's.
I've seen the exact opposite
Jones, though. He has less viewers than he had before, and he has probably less growth. I would probably argue that Nick Fuentes also less growth. I would argue that everyone who leaves, YouTube has less growth. I mean, there's a reason why.
There's a reason why they're here in the first place.
Voluntarily leaving these things. It's because that's where the eyeballs are, and it's conceivable that if a Joe Rogan went there, you would bring a bunch of those eyeballs, and maybe that would grow there. It's possible, and if that was to happen, then I would join it, and I would start to do some pushback there as well.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I wanted to kind of connect this to something that we've all kind of seen on YouTube, right? One of the things that I think you were really early to, Sam, was understanding that YouTube was dominated by right-wing sort of talk show hosts, right? And there was a need for somebody to call in and take phone calls from libertarians and be like, guys, this is just not a viable political plan or strategy for our country, right? It created that need and it facilitated that need. And I think one of the concerns that Gavin and I have about deplatforming or removing somebody from, like Alex Jones, to use a big example, obviously odious. Nobody likes or cares about Alex Jones, at least I hope not in our audience, right? So you have a guy like him, but he's still he is it always baffles me when I go and look at the numbers that he's getting on his InfoWars website and the amount of money that he's able to rake in, and I worry that if we go down this rabbit hole, where we try and push them out of sight.
Sure, but he's been huge forever. Like Alex Jones, hasn't Alex Jones been around since the 90s? like sure, he's off these platforms, but he's existed before these platforms existed. He existed when these platforms came to be, and he's existed after he's kicked off of them. I mean, it's fine. It's fine to make sure that he's not on these platforms. He wants to be. He's just reverted back to what he was before these platforms were even around. Like early 2000s, late 90s, Alex Jones is just like what he kind of is today. I don't know. It just seems not like that big of an issue. Honestly, game looks fun. You should buy it.
That not only will we get the double, like the example that comes to my mind is that Donald got removed from Reddit, and then immediately they take down a show like Chapo Trap House, which is just an innocuous like leftist show that
I'm not sure if I'd say Chapo Trap House was an innocuous leftist show.
All of these people who, you're right, less people, undoubtedly less people watch InfoWars now than they did when they were in their heyday on YouTube. But the faction of people that still do are now so removed and isolated from having to grapple with material like the kind of content that we all make, which is, hey, let's look at this piece of like right-wing content or whatever, and let's talk about how absolutely absurd it is, how it's not rooted in any kind of reality, how they are using you, they are manipulating all of your fears and all of your anxieties and all of your worries in a way that is channeling them to their direct benefit and complete emptiness for you, right? I worry that if we go down the rabbit hole of, okay, we just kick all these fuckers off of the internet or where we're going to see them, right? And of course, that's in one hand, okay, yeah, you don't have to see all these crazy people that are terrible all of the time, but I worry that they're going to bring those people over, and then it's almost like we don't even realize what's happening. Like another example is the Andrew Tate phenomenon. I don't know how much you followed of that. I didn't really even understand the extent of this guy's just like out of like mask off misogyny, just like women are property, like fuck as many hoes as you want, and like get your, like it really like this is like
not the hoes.
He's getting a massive audience, and I just worry if you ban guys like that who, of course.
So here's the thing: who knew about Andrew Tate before he had his big rise on YouTube? You ever think about that? Like he followed it, right? But I highly doubt this guy knew much about Andrew Tate before YouTube and Twitch allowed him to spend all the time and money he wanted on the platform and to be able to rake in dough off of like know nothing like dude bros who were just like I feel like I'm listening. I was told that it's always great to just listen to people no matter how fucking stupid that it says. Just let them keep talking. Just let them keep talking and talking and talking and talking until people just started to buy into everything. People started to push him. He was massive. He was huge. No, a lot of people didn't. I knew about him, but this is my job. I knew that he's like some weirdo, somebody who literally advocates for men to try to commit human sex trafficking and acquire as many women to human sex traffic as a business venture. I know about that. I've heard about him before, but he was like something in my circles. It's so much worse now. It's way worse now, and they should have kicked him off a long time ago. They shouldn't have let him get this big now that he was able to grow his audience off of like a fucking leech off of a lot of guys who had no clue about anything better. really. Had no clue what they were getting into. Guy who moved to Romania because they have weaker rape laws and rape charges. Like, what the hell? What, his house has been raided by police twice for human sex trafficking? This is the guy that we have on the platform? Really? I don't know. I just think it's odd. I just think it's strange, and I don't think that we should be doing this type of shit, honestly. And I think the less that we have, the better we are for it. And the whole reason why it was as bad as it got, how because he was able to, and the people who bought into a lot of his dog shit were able to manipulate the algorithm and show as many people it as possible, and then they got huge. And it's their fault for not nipping it in the bud when they should have. It seems like the issue here, instead of deplatforming them, I go even further personally. I don't think that we should deplatform these people. I don't think that we should platform them in the first place.
Like, I don't think anybody with a, functioning brain should listen to them for advice or for any kind of, content. But if you isolate them, then I don't know what's happening, and I can't make content for people to be like, this is crazy, guys. This is absolutely not the way to think. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think, like I say, I think that, like, I think there's a good argument on both sides of this. And it's one that is basically like, theoretically, someone could figure this out, right? Like, I mean, there is a number, right? I mean, there is like where did Tate get his following? My guess is on one of these platforms that we're talking about. I mean, and someone could theoretically go like, okay, Nick Fuente, like, is he growing? Is he just dying on the vine? And the point is that if there is a sense that this is happening over there and it's problematic.
Oh, also one more thing. Nothing stops you from being able to talk about what these people do on their platforms when they get banned. Nothing stops you. Literally nothing stops you. Even here on Twitch, where they have like really strict platforming rules after somebody gets banned, nothing really stops me from talking about the shit that these people talk about and do. I can still do it. I can do it all the time. We do it all the time. And so I don't know, maybe is it because they're just lazy and they don't want to have to go looking for it, like doing their job that people pay them to do? They don't want to have to go and actually find the stuff now. They just want it to be like spoon fed to them, so they don't have to spend any time actually looking for stuff to talk about and looking for stuff to debunk. If it was like that important to you, then I don't know. I feel like you'd be spending the time to do that. But if not, I don't know. It just, I don't know why you're complaining, if I'm going to be honest. But that's just me though.
That we can't reach those audiences. There's no reason why we can't go over there too.
True.
So like, and again, this is distinct. If it were up to me, there would be a bunch of different like little platforms, and these things would be siloed, because frankly, with all due respect to you and with all due respect to me, we're not winning. Like, we're not winning that battle. And so, and like I say, if we were, then maybe my perspective and maybe the analysis that you're talking about would be different, right? It would be like, if we did have the ability to, if I had the ability to sort of speak to Crowder's audience, let's say, and, show them, all of them, how ridiculous a lot of what he says is, then I think the calculus might be different, but it's not.
So do you think Steven Crowder should be censored?
Do I think he should be?
Yes. Hello? How many times has that man broken to you? Like every other day, their YouTube is like, we had to ban Crowder again. And by ban, they just mean not allow him to log on to his post a video on his YouTube channel for 12 hours. Like, it's every other day. How many times can somebody get banned from a platform? I think this man has been banned more than like anybody else that I remember. Like, they just keep giving him chances. How many times has he been banned already? How many times has YouTube openly said that he's broken TOS and they haven't done anything about it? I don't know. I think honestly, a lot of these platforms need to be way better when it comes to who they ban and who they keep. Bro, some chick was actually getting raw dog. She was genuinely getting fucked on Twitch, on the platform, while she was streaming. Like, some dude was literally in her butthole while she was streaming. And you could see it. She got a 7-day ban. 7-day ban. Some people, it's insanity to me, bro. Some people accidentally show porn on their stream and they get 30-day bans or perma bans. This person was making porn and they didn't get the same sort of like punishment. It's wild. It blows my mind, honestly. This girl was like, while she was answering chat, she was busy farting on his dick, and it was like, and they're like, 7-day ban. It's wild, and then she grew from it. It's ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. These platforms are so ass when it comes to all of this, and they need to do better. 1 week ban, how sway? I know. She thought that chat couldn't see it, but she had like the blinds open with her window, and so like the reflection of them fucking was like in the window in the background, so you could see everything. 7-day ban. 7-day ban.
Booted from YouTube.
Yeah.
Wait, remember, like, can we, oh my God, are we gonna have to do this? Here, wait a second. Do I have that image of the one that Steven Crowder commissioned of Ilhan Omar? Yeah, here it is. I found it. Remember this? Do you think Steven Crowder should be deplatformed? Did you remember this? Remember this? Do you know what this is? Do we know what? Do I have anybody in chat who doesn't know what this is? I just want to know if we have some people here who don't know what this is. But Steven Crowder, a couple of years ago, decided that he was going to go on Fiverr and commission a Powerpuff Girls style intro, but of the squad of like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. And so, but she left out, Ayanna Presley, but whatever. Anyways, she took those three, and it was a sort of making fun of them. It was a Powerpuff Girls style video, and in one scene where this who is the Ilhan Omar character, would you look at that? He decided to put a fucking suicide vest on her, the Muslim woman. Wow, dude, that's quite curious. It's quite strange. He did that. Remember his old segments on Japan and China? Remember that? Please don't show it. You don't want me to show it? I was going to show it. I mean, like, he made it. I think we need to like talk about it. I think we should talk about it. When he put on like the rice hat and massive glasses, and he put on like buck teeth, and then he did like his best fucking crazy ass Japanese accent with like gong music going on in the background, and then he took a doll of a white girl and then dunked it into a vase full of water. But that's not even the worst part. When he did the same exact outfit with like a fake fucking Amazon kimono, and then he was on a green screen where he was turning a massive pot and pretending to sing like a Japanese folk song or whatever about poodle noodle soup, and he took like stuffed animals of dogs and then like chucked them into the pot and was like, I love my noodle poodle soup, I love Japan, it was horrible. It was horrendous. Oh yeah, here's this. All right, well, here's this.
The second show in June, which is officially Louder with Crowders, Cultural Appropriation Month, where we take you across the globe to experience and appreciate all the great cultures this world has to offer. This week, the mystical, age-old culture of China. This week marks the second show in June, which is officially Louder with Crowders, Cultural...
So this is what he calls comedy. Just so you know, this is his definition of comedy. Going to like 70s like World War II style racism. It's genuinely horrendous. Like this man has never come up with a good joke in his entire life. Yeah, Eisenhower called. He wants his comedy back. Wait a second. I'm trying to find this. Does this have oh yeah. So yeah, he did all of this.
Glad to be back.
It's genuinely insanity. Sure, what color light? Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah, here's what I was talking about.
Footage from the most recent dog meat festival.
And they dare to ask, should we deplatform Steven Crowder? I'm gonna mute this one. But yeah, they dare to ask, should we deplatform Steven Crowder? Should this man be deplatformed? What do you guys think, huh? Do you guys have any how do you all feel about this? It's the most absurd racism I've ever seen, actually. Wait, let me see. Oh, and then when he did his George Floyd reenactment. Oh, did that video get taken down? Yeah, did Crowder's George Floyd video get taken down? I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. But yeah, Crowder did a George Floyd tried to do a George Floyd reenactment, where what happened is that he got his smallest twink worker to kneel on to sit on his back for 5 minutes, and then he went, "There's no possible way that George Floyd could have died by kneeling, because this is what he had somebody do. This is it. This is what happened. This is what he did. He did the George Floyd challenge, you know, normal things from normal people." Oh yeah, and then he said that black farmers don't need money because they spend their time trying to grow crack plants and Hennessy trees. You know, should we deplatform this man? Many people are still asking this question. Many people are still asking. So hasn't he been banned yet? That's what I'm talking about. He gets banned every other week, but YouTube just won't permaban him. They just won't. I don't get it. I do not understand it. Why they won't finally, you know, put the last nail in the coffin of this man's YouTube channel.
What I would do if I were YouTube, what I would do is say, you can be on here, you're not monetized, you cannot advertise for any mechanism which will you know, you can't advertise for your membership. I mean, for instance, like I've had deals in the past, not currently, where a public radio station wants to, or a community radio station wants to carry my show, and the terms are no ads and no selling your memberships.
So you don't think that right wingers should be able to like make content and like monetize it online? Just anyone you disagree with?
No.
What is happening? What is this jump in logic? Hello? We were talking specifically about Crowder. How does this get blown up into every other content creator now? Every other right-wing content creator. Not every other right-wing content creator is Steven Crowder. As much as I don't like Ben Shapiro hasn't done that. Ben Shapiro didn't do what we just watched. They haven't.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm saying that if they cross the terms of service. For instance, let's just do a hypothetical, because I don't watch Crowder that much, but I do think some of his stuff crosses the line.
I also don't watch it that much.
Right. Obviously, YouTube feels that it has crossed the line because they suspended him for a week or whatever it is. I'm not sure the details. But let's just say that there's somebody out there, John Stevenson, it's a made-up name, and he is openly advocating for the elimination of Jews in our society. Just as an example.
Yeah, I love Jews personally. I'd like to go on the record
threat of violence, right?
and say I'm a little bit of a Jew lover.
Threat of violence. It's saying that this society would be much better off.
That's not even true. I don't know any Jewish people.
And I think that's the case. We should, there should be an elimination of Jews. And
do you think that's where the line should be drawn if you're advocating for the extermination of Jewish people?
I'm just using that as an example because I think we all agree that that is past the line. I don't know where exactly the line should be if I was in charge of.
But that's a line that's already kind of determined by the First Amendment. Like the First Amendment doesn't guarantee you the right to commit or threaten acts of violence or to dox people, for example. Like there are lines in the sand that all of us can agree to.
The First Amendment is really, I mean, doxing is illegal, but saying I advocate the elimination of Jews, that's not illegal.
It's not.
It's not.
Right. I mean,
and the government. We're not talking about the First Amendment.
What the fuck the government's going to do?
The First Amendment is not implicated because it's not the government doing it. I'm saying that wherever YouTube sees a line, whatever it is that line is, and they're just interested in maintaining they're interested in two things. Interested in maintaining their business, right? And they're interested in not having the government regulate them stringently, okay? And so those are the two motivations that YouTube has. If I were YouTube, I would just simply say like, okay, you want to say this, and I don't know that I would say it with that person who's talking about eliminating Jews. I feel like I probably have a little stake in that, and I would say, yeah, no, you're not going to be on my platform. But for grayer areas, let's say, I would say like you can be on this platform, you just cannot monetize it. So you have the ability to speak, but you don't. There's no, you don't have a right to make money off of that. And I would imagine he would still do it. It would involve a little bit of extra work insofar as that he has to, edit certain things out. Can't have paid advertisements in the thing. But if it's really a concern about ideas and not, basically two different entities making a ton of money off of shit that is toxic for society, then that seems to be a happy medium. I mean,
Man,
but yes,
this
I
guy is
celebrate
so based.
Steven Crowder being booted off for any reason whatsoever.
So is there a line you draw though? Like, because there's a lot of right wingers on YouTube, for example, that obviously they don't have the same reach as Steven Crowder. Same thing goes with Joe Rogan or any of these characters. Like, they're kind of figureheads, but there's a ton of people under them. Do you think all of those people should be deplatformed or kicked off because they share opinions that are, radically different than your own? Because again, I disagree.
It's not a question of radically different. It's like, I think like things like transphobia.
Yeah, please stop. I hate when people think this, where it's just like, I don't like it because it's different than my own. It's not about that. It's not about different. There are people who, I don't like chocolate, okay? I don't want people who are banned on the platform because they like chocolate, okay? It's not about people who disagree with me. It's about people who are bad for society, okay? What I care about is what's good for society and what's bad. We can have disagreements on that. That's fine. I can talk to a conservative person without them being literally an insane person. It's not always like that. They're not always wacky, insane people. Not always. Really, really not. But sometimes they are. And sometimes those people need to be banned. It's not about, I don't agree with you, so you must die. It's more like, you are destroying the very fabric of our society and leading to the deaths of people. You must go. Okay, have we forgotten about how like content creators have like literally been named in like mass shooting manifestos? But whatever, I guess. Christchurch shooting, more like differences of opinion.
I think things like racism, I think things, and even more specifically, misinformation that actively harms people, I think, in the context of a pandemic, I think is really problematic. I mean, I wouldn't deplatform somebody for arguing that, Russia is not being imperialist by attacking Ukraine. They had no other choice. I mean, I wouldn't do that. But but understand, like, I don't have the power to do any of this anyway.
Only if, brother.
Right,
So
it's all
I'm
hypothetical.
right, but I mean, like, you wanted to move it back to the world as it is now, as the world is now. Like, yeah, I'm going to celebrate any right winger getting booted off of
Sure,
YouTube. And
I mean,
okay.
I'll celebrate it too. Here's the thing: like when Andrew Tate got banned, I wasn't shedding a tear for that motherfucker. Fuck Andrew Tate. He's a piece of garbage. Like I'm not shedding a tear at all. But when it comes to having a principle, I think sometimes the whole point of a principle is that regardless of who's at stake, you have to defend the principle. And I do fear that, for example, Elon Musk almost just bought up Twitter, right? That was about to happen. So now all of a sudden he would have been the guy in control. And currently the right wing is fear mongering about doctors that are providing, care to transgender people. All of a sudden, in a flip of the switch, that whole situation, the tables would be turned.
It's my favorite when people
that.
trans
We
their
live
gender.
right now, and I guess that the people that control the social media companies are nominally like liberal left, whatever. But what if that changed? I'm not comfortable with that, especially as someone that does traffic and, oftentimes pretty radical talking points just from a left wing perspective. I mean, what can I not make jokes about eating the rich, for example, or guillotining people? Like these are, parts of the leftist.
Here's the thing. If you can't make jokes about guillotining people or eating the rich, you'll be okay. As far as I know, there's nothing in like leftist in like that's so important to being a leftist that you need to be able to make eat the rich jokes. I don't think that's needed, actually. I don't think we need to be able to make eat the rich jokes to be able to bring about the revolution, bro. I think you'll be okay. If I'm going to be completely honest, I think you'll be fine. And also, if that means that there isn't like rampant bigotry to the point that it could be getting people killed, I think that's Pog, actually. I think it's, not only do I think it's Pog, I think it's Gigapog, if I'm going to be honest. And we should be doing it more. But that's just me.
This discourse that happens in these kind of niche online spaces, and someone might look at that and say, what the hell, they're advocating for murder, they're advocating genocide of the bourgeois or whatever. I don't think I should be banned off Twitter for making a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't think you should be banned for that joke too. But I'll tell you what I said as soon as I heard that Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter. I don't give a shit, because that fucking guy wants to spend $42 billion on that. Good luck with it, motherfucker. And I mean, that's exactly what I said. Like,
I love saying
I don't give a shit. Like I don't. I guess this is my point. Like, the principle you're talking about, which I'm not. That like, is it everything should be allowed on the internet?
I think that. Oh, do you want me to answer that or?
Well, I mean, I just posed it again, but you can both answer it. But like, what's the principle should be? Like, if that Joe Stevens says, fake name, says, yeah, I advocate the elimination of Jews. Should that guy Should that guy not? Should a company just say like, oh, no problem with that?
Pog.
I mean, I think there's definitely some sort of responsibility they have, and I think that demonetizing is a little bit different than straight up deplatforming. So in a case that's very extreme like that, yeah, I can see measures being taken. But generally, and I mean,
but if it's the principle, then you got to tell me like. Well,
I think that crosses into a line of where it might not even be protected by the First Amendment. It depends on how it's phrased.
It is protected by the First Amendment.
How it's phrased. And again, I'm not trying to defend these disgusting right-wing arguments, but I also
I understand. But I'm saying that the principle you're talking about, if it's a principle, because I don't have this principle, I just don't subscribe to it. I'm not a free speech.
The government can. So this is what happens when you spend all your time not understanding the difference between like the government and the company. Okay. This is protected by all of this speech is protected by the First Amendment. The government cannot put you in jail for saying you hate a minority and you want them to die. It's not going to happen. You can do that as much as you want. Now, you may not be allowed in some certain spaces, and if you're aiming it directly at somebody, it can fall under like a harassment law. But if you're just like saying it generally, like no, you're going to be fine. And so this is why we don't like take these ideas and then like try and put them on like these types of companies. It's only going to make society worse. And like and we haven't even talked about how these platforms would get so toxic that by virtue of these right-wingers being on there would be less diversity of opinion, because there have to be so many people who would have to leave simply because the place is too toxic for them to even stay there. And so like we talk about this a lot. This is an example that we haven't spoke on too much, but let's say that there's like a little conservative boy and he's in his little fifth grade class, and then every single other person in the classroom goes, yo, I hate conservatives are cringe, all of them are horrible, I wouldn't share my lunch with a conservative, they make the world a worse place and they should not exist. I'm not gonna say that's based, but you know, that is definitely an opinion a human can hold. With that being said, that little conservative boy is orders of magnitude less likely to speak up about his views now because he knows that everyone there hates him. It's the silencing. It's how free speech. It's a simple thing about how free speech can easily silence someone or something. It's very possible. But I don't know, these guys just like never talk about it. The silencing effect, the chilling effect that Puritanian free speech can have on other types of speech that would lead there to be like less free speech in total. If we can trim some speech to allow more speech to be in totality, then that seems like a good thing to do.
And I don't subscribe to, but if you have the principle and you've got to deal with these situations and you've got to be able to articulate where's the line, and then who imposes this? Is this the government forcing, like basically adjudicating each one of these instances and then telling YouTube, okay, you can't demonetize him or you can't deplatform him? I'm like, how does this actually work? Like, because the general principle, like philosophically speaking, to be honest with you, like those type of conversations, I don't care. Like the philosophy, like I care about in practice, what happens in practice. And so my response is like, I can't come up with a system that works any better than the idea that there shouldn't be a corporately owned town hall.
Right, and I also disagree with the fact that there should be that, but that is the way it is. And do I think that the government should come in a sense that we're not already regulating these companies in the First Amendment? I would like to see that happen. I would like companies, social media companies, to be regulated within the bounds of the First Amendment.
You ever notice how a lot of these people advocating for this? Oh, we need the sort of like weirdo totalitarian free speech. Have you ever noticed what type of people always ask for this type of stuff? Not to be like a giga hater, but you know. You ever like take a good look at these types of people who are always for this type of, more free speech would be so cool. Oh man, you know what's more important than making sure that minorities don't get doxxed into their like families getting hunted down and possibly getting killed in a false swatting police raid? Oh man, being able to say, eat the rich. Because that's more important than any of that. But okay, I don't know. I just think it's a curious position, if I'm going to be completely honest. Bro, just debate them into not doxing you. Have you ever thought about that? Bro, just debate them into not doing the Holocaust. Have you ever thought about that? If they were so smart, why didn't they just like debate the Nazis and not holocausting them? You ever think about that? Has that ever crossed your mind? Curious, is it not? If black people didn't want to be slaves, then they should have just debated the slave traders into not making them slaves. What can I say? Come on. It was right there from the very beginning. Why has nobody thought about this? Okay, Kanye. Enjoy this last stream chat. I'm making a point. I'm not saying this. These are not things I believe. I'm making a point saying that these things don't work. You can't just, it's not like the Nazis were gonna go door to door. Hello. We noticed that you are a Jewish family. Would you like to come to our local debate night where we debate whether or not your ghetto should remain? Like, I don't know. That's not how that works.
Deal, because as you said, it is the new public square, and you can go out into the public and say terrible, problematic things. Unfortunately, I can go out to the coffee shop and have a conversation with Zach and some other people around me about how I hate women or whatever. Obviously, that's not something I would do, but like that is permissible. I'm not going to be arrested. I'm not going to be like taken out of the public setting for saying that. So in the same way, I just resist this idea.
The coffee shop could ask you to leave, though.
Well, if I was screaming and shouting, perhaps that's true.
They have the right. I mean, now look, I think there are certain protections that we have about why you can't be asked to leave a coffee shop. You can't be asked to leave a coffee shop if you're black.
You're right.
Why? I'm joking. Think you can be asked to leave in probably half the states, maybe more, to leave if you're transgender. I don't know that the Supreme Court has addressed that.
Well, Sam, I mean, you platform people in the Majority Report via the phone calls that have all kinds of crazy views. Like why not just, not even let those people speak? I think that you've showed a really good way to deal with those people is to, face their arguments head on, attack their disinformation or hateful viewpoints and expose them.
Does he know how platforming works? Actually, I don't know why I'm asking this question. He obviously has no clue how platforming works. I don't want to be like a hater. I don't want to like come off as like a giga hater or something, but it's just like, sometimes I wonder how much these people have thought about these types of like opinions before they decided to speak. You know what I mean? Like, sure, in where Sam Seder has complete editorial authority on when they can speak, if they can speak, how long they can speak, and when they get to call in and get to control like the entire situation around it. Oh my gosh, you have people with the worst opinions come on and then you debate them about it? What? This is just like Andrew Tate being able to just go on and do whatever he wants on Twitch or YouTube. It's the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. At all. It's genuinely surprising that he thinks this. I don't know, man.
For example,
I think that if you were to impose like that First Amendment.
Oh, also, it's why a lot of like it's also the big reason why a lot of conservative platforms do the exact same thing. It's why Ben Shapiro doesn't like call into streams or something or call into other like radio shows to be able to debate lefties. And instead what he does is the only time he really does a real debate is when he's up on stage in a room full of people who paid to literally see him, and then have somebody who who's on his payroll hold the mic, and then he has it taken away from them and kicked out whenever he wants.
I think like you're saying, like all those lesser conservatives out there, I definitely think that I would say that the standards based upon your audience, I think that's a pretty effective way, frankly, I think that's a pretty effective way if I was going to, and like I say, I would much rather than deplatforming people, if I'm going to have the government regulate, rather than come in and adjudicate each situation based upon some analogy to the First Amendment, because it only becomes a First Amendment issue if the government owns the entity, right? But
I'm just saying, as a principle, I think that they should try to uphold the First Amendment to the best of their abilities.
The government.
Why?
No, the companies. In an ideal world, again, this is all hypothetical. I understand that they're private companies. I just don't think we should cheerlead it when they do censor and deplatform, especially as a left. I don't think that makes us look good. I think it, frankly, makes us look like pearl clutching, censorious, authoritarians.
I think authoritarians. I mean, more often than not, when I am cheering the deplatforming, I don't do it on my show. I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to find, me do anything other than like, good, I don't give a shit. And like, I think if you're saying strategically and in terms of messaging, I think, yeah, there is definitely value in just being like, okay, bye. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the cheerleading aspect of it, yeah, I think that there's better ways and worse ways of responding to these things. And, I think that's a separate argument, right? That's like a messaging. And, but yeah, I think ultimately, if it helps the issue sets that I'm promoting win, then I'm for it. If it doesn't, which you guys make, an argument that might not, then I'm against it.
So you're not really concerned with like the precedent?
No, because like I say, the precedent's already been set. Like the bottom line is, the left has been shut out of the conversation on every major platform that exists.
Except
not
for
the
the ones
right.
that you're arguing for more censorship on.
No, I'm not arguing for more censorship. I'm saying like I don't care. I just don't care for these things. I'm not arguing for more censorship. I'm happy to see them go, but I'm not I'm not out there. Again, you'd be hard pressed.
What did you mean by saying that Spotify should be more responsible in the way they handle Joe Rogan? Like, what exactly were you?
I think corporations that do shit that harm the public should pay.
That's like every corporation, though. You could say that about McDonald's. Like, I mean,
I do. In fact, twice a year I go to Vegas to go to a tort conference where almost all the interviews I do are about actions that are taken based upon statutes, civil actions, to extract dollars out of companies that are doing stuff that harm the public. When Spotify is making money off of that, they are privatizing their profits and they are socializing
the harm.
And the cost of that, the costs are people are not getting vaccinated. People are not taking seriously a fucking pandemic. And we pay for that. We pay for that in lives. We pay for that in medical expenses. We pay for that in the elongation of the pandemic. So cool. And Spotify is just making money off it. So I'm coming for them.
I think that there is a clear distinction that it might be fruitful for us to lay out, because I actually agree with a lot of the points that you're making, Sam. I don't need to like pretend that I don't. I think that, yeah, they are basically, I mean, all of those, voices that we could name, the litany of right wingers that get millions and millions of views, they are also raking in a fuck ton of money for these companies. And they're doing so to, at the expense of all the people that are listening to them, essentially, for the most part. That's 100% true. And I don't believe that you have a fundamental right to make money or make a profit doing or articulating your viewpoint. However, I think that's a little bit different than just removing somebody from a website or a platform entirely, like removing somebody like Alex Jones from YouTube or Twitter, removing somebody like Andrew Tate or from YouTube or Twitter, something like that. I think that that's a little bit different. And so I feel like, you could make a more compelling middle ground here by saying that while you don't have a fundamental right to be paid for, your speech, you do have a right to make that speech and to acquire an audience. What do you think about that, Gavin?
Well, I mean, going back to the Joe Rogan thing, I mean, I agree that it's irresponsible. We said that at the time. Like, I said, hey, man, if you're not a doctor, like, I personally wouldn't feel comfortable with giving people medical advice or telling them, not to take this medicine or not to take this vaccine. Like, that's not my place. I understand that. I personally view it as being irresponsible. But at the same time, do I want to live in a world where people aren't allowed to have those conversations? I really don't. Like, I honestly think that's a nanny state.
It's not that you can't have these. Why when it comes to these types of people, why is it always either everybody is allowed to say anything they want at any point in time for whatever reason and make crazy amounts of money off of it, or nobody says anything and the government cuts off your tongue when you're 5? Cuts off your tongue the instant you're born, just like when you get circumcised. They circumcise your tongue out of your mouth and no one's allowed to speak ever. Why? Can we like be smart? Can we be smart and like, I can only speak off this script, I guess. I don't know. Like, it seems like they have no idea of like a middle ground or something that isn't those two like options when it comes to the world. It's very strange.
And I disagree with libertarians on a lot, but one thing that I think they are 100% right on is the fact that they don't want to live in a nanny state, and neither do I. I don't want, some corporation or the government telling me which viewpoints I'm allowed to be exposed to and which ones are too dangerous for me to hear. I personally, and I know a lot of people, are low IQ or whatever, but like I personally can understand when I'm listening to Joe Rogan what I should take from and what I should trust, and I can listen to Joe Rogan and just tune that out. And again, if you can't, then I don't know what to tell you, but I don't think it's the government or these corporations' job to protect you from like harmful viewpoints, especially when it comes to, questioning the medical consensus. And I'm not saying that we should just allow people to call for the genocide of the transgender community or whatever. But, if this is, COVID was undeniably a big deal, like culturally.
You should be able to question, we should be able to question the lives of the transgenders.
To say that, this aspect of our life, we're not allowed to have conversations of, we're not allowed to question. And again, I'm fucking triple vax. Like I'm pro-vax, all that stuff, but I still don't want to live in a world, especially a world, and I grew up when the internet, there was a lot, it was a lot less gentrified.
This guy's reactionary. I'm telling you, a lot of these dudes are just kind of reactionaries at the end of the day. There's kind of like reactionaries, and it's okay if the world is a worse place as long as I can say my memes. What the hell?
A lot more unique spaces. It was a lot less, sanitized by corporations. And it seems like nowadays it's becoming less and less and less of that. And maybe in some ways that's for the better. Again, if you're part of a marginalized community that's been historically harassed on these internet spaces, I'm sure that's great. But still, I do not want to live in a world where I can't have access to these viewpoints, where I can't have access to these conversations. And also, I think that for the people that really do, care about this stuff and really do believe these conspiracy theories, it's only going to confirm these conspiracies to them in their minds to see the people espousing said conspiracies censored. If suddenly Joe Rogan got censored, what do you think all the followers of him would say? They would say he's being censored because he's telling the truth. He's the only one out here that's, spilling the beans.
So I just don't believe that this is true. I don't believe all of them would say that. I think some of them would say that 100%. But there's even a lot of people in Joe Rogan's fan base that are like, this guy's kind of going off the rails. But whatever, I guess.
He's a whistleblower, and they're treating him.
Let me just stop you because that's the second argument, right? That it's not effective. All right, so let's just put that aside for a moment because I think that's debatable. I honestly do think that's debatable, and I think someone out there could do research to establish the reality of it. But the way it works with Spotify in that instance, okay, and Spotify without a doubt said something to Rogan. They said, "Do you really need to talk about? Do you really need to espouse these theories? Because after all, Joe, you're just a fucking guy who wanted to get high with his friends on a podcast. You're not qualified to do this. This is not Spotify saying to a couple of epidemiologists who are discussing the different variants and who are qualified at this. My point is, Spotify is functioning as a publisher of, for whether we like it or not, news. Joe Rogan is news to people. Okay. Now you and I and Zach might be able to look at this and go, nah, I'm not so cool. I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is, this is a big country. There's millions of people who, and Joe Rogan's like, I don't know why people are taking my advice. You're an idiot if you take my advice. Well, you know what? A lot of people took his advice, and he can determine whether they're idiots or not. But it's happening. It's existing. Like the argument on some level you're making is like, I had some libertarians say like, you should sell the Pinto when it explodes. You just sell it at a lower price. People know what they're getting. Like, that doesn't work. And even if it was a situation where only Joe Rogan's listeners are going to suffer in that instance, which it's not, right? Because this is a society-wide problem, particularly a pandemic. Spotify, if they have, and I would get rid of, and certainly reform Section 230, okay? Spotify, if they know that they are responsible for the content they're putting out and whatever standard you want to create, does material harm provable? And there are mechanisms in which to establish these things. We have that in tort law. If they are
Can we have
liable
I want to be turned
civilly at the very least, in terms of like, you've got to pay damages. If there are half a dozen people out there, or a dozen, or 100, or 200, 500, or 1,000, or 10,000 who can come back and say, I got COVID, I wasn't vaccinated, or my father got COVID, he wasn't vaccinated because he was convinced that Joe Rogan was telling him what to do. I think someone should be able to bring an action against Spotify.
That would be sick.
They made millions of dollars off of specifically of Rogan. And so somebody has to be held to account. There is no standards here. And, FCC broadcasting has standards on which, you must apply to. I mean, and frankly, the cable stations are outside of that purview. But, I don't buy in the tort law that Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson can get away with saying, like, this is entertainment. People need to figure it out, that it's not real news. I think that's a problem. I think the shit should be actionable. You need to prove that there was at least due diligence done to establish what you're saying. But when I watch Joe Rogan go like, with Zeps, right? That moment where he's with Zeps, where he's like, myocarditis. No, it hits people more from, this is a fact, right? Like, this is a knowable fact. And he's just sort of off the top of his head saying, the vaccinations give you myocarditis. And the fact is that, A, he doesn't know what myocarditis is. Yep. He doesn't know the incidence of myocarditis. He doesn't know that it's also higher with the COVID for all of the cohorts he's talking about. He's just misstating something, and he's been misstating that fact multiple times.
Right.
I think somebody has to be responsible, and particularly the corporation making millions off that shit. Millions. Somebody needs to be held responsible for the social harm that's caused.
So, Joe Rogan was not the first anti-vaxxer. Anti-vaxxer sentiments and, content has been around for as long as I've been alive.
Oh, sure.
What the hell is this point?
In general that don't subscribe to modern medicine. People that say all modern medicine is bad. You should just meditate and, sit in the sunlight or whatever the hell they say. That's been a thing for a while. I just don't see why it's suddenly different now. Like,
yes. Snake oil salesmen have been around for a while. You know what happened? They became illegal. Same with loan sharks and a lot of payday lenders. They became illegal. And so we're not even asking, so we're talking about things that are on the same level or worse than that, but we're not even advocating for them to become illegal. I mean, I can, I guess. I don't, but it's possible. I'd rather the state not get involved, but if the state has to get involved, then yeah. You can't do that shit. You can't lie to people about their medical health and actual medical shit and think you can get away with it. The only difference is now we're living in a new level of like the Wild West snake oil salesman, and these guys are making millions of dollars off of it the same way they did back in the ye olde days. The only difference is we don't have any laws against it and nobody's even really talking about it. Something has to happen. Something has to change. They aren't illegal. They're called chiropractors. No, but those guys actually work though. When I almost got my neck snapped by a chiropractor, I've never felt more alive.
Do I think those are good
I'm
people?
not talking about Rogan. I'm not talking about that individual you're talking about. I'm talking about this major corporation that is making money off it. If Joe Rogan was, saying this on his own platform, I would criticize him and say he's full of shit.
Well, that's fine to do. I think that's perfectly fine to criticize him for doing that.
But if he is doing it in service, he is an employee of Spotify, or he is subcontracted by Spotify.
But that's not why they hired him.
Who cares?
Doubt about the
I don't care.
They wanted whatever that mix is that is bringing eyeballs to Spotify or earballs or whatever it is. To Spotify.
My earballs.
That's what they wanted, and so they don't get to reap the profits for the. I mean, this to me is exactly like.
So any bad medical advice should be prosecutable by law. Like what if I?
Sometimes, yeah. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Yes. I think if somebody's like, man, I'm really scared of COVID, I wonder what to do, and you tell them to go drink bleach, but unironically, and then they actually do, yes, I think that you should be held responsible for that. 100%. I think you should. Yes. I think if you tell somebody who's suffering from like high blood pressure that actually the best way to solve high blood pressure is to eat spoonfuls and spoonfuls of salt and fat, and then they fucking die or need like a quadruple bypass or something, or need like a kidney removed and they have kidney failure, yeah, you should be held responsible for that. You should. 100%. Yes, absolutely. I don't understand this, how he's saying this with like shock and awe that I can't believe somebody is held responsible. Oh no, me reaping, yeah, me sowing, me reaping. Oh no, like come on, bro, you need to have some responsibility.
What if I ran a whole show talking? What if I ran a whole show talking about malpractice? Okay, well, let me give my example. What if I ran a whole show talking about how, Diet Coke is the best thing ever, even though chemicals in it are proven to be carcinogenic, and how you should do nothing but drink Diet Coke every day and eat McDonald's. And I was, giving people that advice. A lot of people are going to suffer health consequences down the line if they embrace that advice and embrace that diet. Does that mean that me or YouTube?
If you were to say, if you were working for Spotify and you were wildly popular, and you were to argue that, let's make it more sort of realistic, right? Because Diet Coke, I don't think there's actually I don't know what harm you could get from drinking a lot of Diet Coke.
Carcinogenic chemicals. There's evidence directly linking it to cancer.
Yeah. Okay.
Frankly, I think that there should be warning labels on Coke if that's the case, and I think there should be action taken against Coke. Not just you. I would also be suing Coke.
Well, what if you're a tobacco enthusiast and you run a channel talking about like, oh, these are my favorite cigarettes, and you're advocating like smoking isn't actually so bad. Like that's obviously wrong and incorrect. It's factually, it's probably harmful. But do I still think that person should be allowed to exist to make that argument?
I think if you're running a channel and you're like literally lying about medical science and saying that tobacco actually isn't bad for you and tobacco's actually great for you, and then people die because of it, yeah, I think you should be held responsible for that. I think you probably should. Yeah. Do I have anybody who disagrees with that, who thinks that like that shouldn't happen? I don't know. I feel like if you just lie to a bunch of people about like their medical health and then they like believe you, unless it's something so incredibly unbelievable, because we already have laws about this type of stuff. If it's so incredibly unbelievable that your average, like, what's the thing that like your average human being wouldn't believe this? Make it so like wacky and unbelievable, right? Like if you, I don't know, if you like make a channel about saying that actually jumping off of cliffs improves your health, and then somebody jumps off a cliff, like maybe not that one, but if it's but a lot of things under that, then yeah, you probably should, yeah.